Here.
Member Kenny? Here. Member Delude?
Here.
Secretary Burke?
Here.
Vice Chair Studley?
Here.
And on. Are. Excused tonight are, Member Price, Member Reyes, and Mr. Lewis is,
Mr. Lewis is recently resigned from the board. He took a position in
Relocated.
another state.
Yep.
So it's fair to say that he is not excused. It is, we have an opening on the board.
right, thank you. I just wasn't sure. The emergency evacuation plan is in the unlikely event there is an emergency, you can go back out the doors that you came in. If for some reason you can't go out those doors, we have doors on either side that go to the back and there's another exit to the parking lot. At this time, I would like to have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right ahead. Flag. There's no right ahead.
Oh, good.
No.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. The flag?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. If you think it's gonna be in the way, we could move it. I assume they took the other one for the event that took place over the weekend and just didn't bring it back. Okay, yep. And I just want to make sure I know we spoke rather quickly. The meeting tonight, for the record, is Monday, June 22nd, 2026 at 6:30. Okay, are we sharing? I guess we are. First item of business is an approval of the minutes from the May 27th, 2026 meeting, which were in our packet, quite lengthy. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 2027.
I have a motion by Mr. Kenny to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second for Mr. Studley. Do I have any discussion, any corrections or edits? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Next, we have new applications. First item is 6.1, the residences on Mishnock Master Plan, public hearing. It's a major land development for a comprehensive permit. The owner applicant is Hopkins Hill LLC. This is Assessors Plat 5, Lot 2, in the R20 residential zone at Mishnock Road and Hopkins Hill, where the applicant proposes to develop 20 multifamily residential dwelling units across 5 buildings on 2.93 acres as a comprehensive permit with associated landscaping, parking, and other site amenities, with a minimum of 25% of the proposed units being deed restricted as affordable. They have public water, and it looks like it'll be on-site wastewater treatment systems. One site access from Mishnock Road. Anyone here for the applicant? Oh, forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is John Mulhern, and I am the principal of Hopkins Hill LLC.
Oh, John. Come on, push that button, it'll be green. Now you're on.
Did everyone hear me? Okay. I'm here before you this evening along with Pat Freeman from American Engineering. And you kind of stole my thunder, Mr. Chairman. You explained what we're here for. The residence is at Mishnock, which, as you said, is a comprehensive permit. We're seeking master plan approval for 20 units, 5 of which will be affordable. There will be 5 4-unit buildings there, situated with an entrance and exit on Mishnock Road, serviced by Kent County Water. Hopefully, we don't have that approval yet, but we're seeking it. And we expect septic systems. We have approved test holes from DEM, anywhere from 48 to 90 inches. So, and the soils are good out there. So we're not anticipating any problems with that. And I've had the opportunity, just for the board's edification, to meet with the Gribben family and Tim Potvin, who lives on Hopkins Hill Road, and Gribbens live on Mishnock Road. Really, we have 4 abutters total, and, well, we have more in the radius than that, but we really only have 4 abutters, one of which is Kent County Water. They own a big chunk of land. So I've spoken to the Gribbens, and there's a Mrs. or Miss Potter and her husband next door. She wasn't able to get here this evening, and I'm expecting a call this week from her husband. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward, and we're here to answer any questions that you have. With regard to Mr. and Mrs. Gribben, I think that we have an understanding of a couple things. They'd like some plantings. They'd like us to move the trash receptacle. We're amenable to all of those things.
Okay, we've all gotten the planning director's report and have a copy of the plan. Does anyone on the board have any questions for the applicant? None?
Is that the whole presentation?
Pretty much. I mean, it's straightforward. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. If you want to see.
If you would like to have the engineer walk through one of the plans, we can have him pull it up on the screen and do that. Would you prefer that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Mulhern, we can have any of the plan sets put up, maybe the sheet 101 L1, the site plan that shows pretty much where everything's going. It shows, I think that's.
Also, and I think the staff has this, but a rendering of what the units would look like. As you know, it's just master plan, so none of this is exactly set in stone, like in terms of the architectural design, but
I got you.
I can have Pat come up.
Okay, great. Yep.
Pat will-
Thanks. And just state your name and employer there for the
Sure.
record.
My name is Patrick Freeman. I'm with American Engineering. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island and a class 3 outs designer. I can take you through the site plans. The most interesting one's going to be sheet 3, if we can get that on the board. Yes, thank you. All right, so proposed, we have a 24-foot wide common driveway, which the town is going to consider as a roadway. So we have to design it to certain standards. We're going to be working on that. That's more the preliminary phase where we're going to have some more details on that. The trash area and parking area in the front of the parcel, we're likely going to be moving those after discussing their location with the abutters. But coming into the property, we have a looped parking area with 2 parking spaces per unit. The units are going to be 2 bedrooms each. They're going to be served by on-site wastewater treatment systems. As you can see, we have them draft designed with the layout, with septic tanks discharging to leach fields. We're going to have proposed connection to water, assuming we get that approval. Couple of drainage areas where we're anticipating we'll need some drainage. It's not on the plan, but we'll need adjacent to Mishnock Road. We're anticipating we might need some drainage in the center of the driveway area. We're proposing to have some sort of drainage structure, most likely underground, preferably, as well as northeast of the proposed buildings. We're likely to have a drainage area there. A couple of interesting features of the site. We do have a wetland area on the north edge of the property, which has an associated buffer zone, which we have to keep our development outside of and meet certain setbacks. And we'll need approval from wetlands for this development. We've done a series of test holes, like John said, littered the site with them. We've got those listed on the side of the plan. Like John said, we got reasonable water tables, 48 inches to 90 inches throughout the site. Is there anything else you'd like or any questions you might have for me?
Does anyone on the board have any questions for the engineer?
Where do you, because it was one of the concerns, one of the notes that I took was the trash and the parking. Where do you anticipate you might move that to?
Couple of options. With the dumpsters, we're contemplating going with individual trash for individual units and having those picked up. And then if we were to relocate the dumpster, we have a couple of options. Preferably, it would be north and east of buildings of building 4 as one option. It puts it further into the site.
Okay.
We haven't nailed that location down, but that is one that I could foresee potentially using.
Are you gonna relocate the guest parking?
Yeah, the guest parking, we're gonna slide it north. Haven't determined its exact location yet, but we're gonna move it further into the site and closer to the buildings.
Well,
Want some comments?
if you do, I have some, I like to hear from the board first, because, yeah, go ahead.
So that was, the parking and the trash was one of my concerns. I had read it in the TRC report. Another concern I had was the buffer, more specifically to do with the waiver to go from 10 feet to 6 feet. I'm a big proponent of screening and buffering and, lessening the impact. And 10 and 6 don't sound like big numbers, but
I do have one comment
Go
that
ahead.
might save us some time.
Sure.
That part of the memo, I believe it was misread. We are doing a 10-foot buffer for the majority of the site. And in lieu of the 10-foot buffer, we're doing a 6-foot fence in some specific locations.
Okay.
So we're not reducing it to 10. We're using 10 where we can and using a fence
Okay.
elsewhere.
I did also see that there was a comment in here about where the fence, the Public Works Director made the comment about the fence. He says the residents will now see not only a building when they look out the back door, but a fence. So the fence should be pushed back 6 feet and plantings should be installed on the side of the fence facing the homes.
Right. So I did see that comment.
Okay.
My only concern with that is we're going to be blocking, the view or the access to that vegetative area from our site. So we wouldn't be able to
Right. No, I
realistically
understand.
maintain it.
It would
you know?
be effectively outside of your property.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I
And
understand.
the other aspect of that is the reason that we're asking for relief from that buffer in those locations is setbacks to leach fields. So we don't want to plant any vegetation that's going to have some root incursion into those septic systems. So that's the reason we're really asking for that relief.
Okay. And then lastly, the bigger concern that I have, and it kind of ties into all of these other little things, that was the density. The number above and beyond the bonus, I guess the figure between 13 to go to 20. My initial concern was the bonus is great because it gets units, but the more units we build, the land suitable for development in terms of like infrastructure, that decreases because we're building more units. So I viewed that as a direct result of, well, that's why the trash is where it is. That's why, these things are here and there because there's less land to work with, which, decreased the buffer. So that was one concern I had with the density, but the bigger picture was the inability to tie into the sewers. So I do have concern with the number 20. I don't know where we go with that. But you addressed the buffer in one aspect, you addressed the parking, you addressed the visitor, the trash pickup. But density is a concern to me.
I like to let the members speak first because I don't like to take the lead and then have them think that, oh, we got to listen to the chairman. So, and I'm just being honest with you, but that's exactly what happened. I looked at this plan before I even read the planning director's report. I saw the 4 spaces up here. I saw the dumpsters and I was like, who's going to park their car every time they visit and walk all the way back there? And I was like, oh, it almost seems like there's so many in there. It's another one of these comp permits. Well, then when I read the planning director's report, you're only entitled to 13 and a half units, but yet you're in looking for 20. And now we're trying to squeeze the buffer and the on-site wastewater treatment. I still wonder how you're going to, you're only 4 guest spaces for one. So that's 1 space for every 4 units. Again, I don't know if that's sufficient or not, but it seems that there's an awful lot happening here, and I would have preferred to stick within the confines of state law, which is a little bit more restrictive than 20. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons is we've had other comp permits coming to us, and we're getting it from all sides. The people that live in town, the council, the fact that they changed the state law. We just had one here, and they had water and sewer, and it was in the hundreds of units approved in a very small, compact area. But even that, we had them rolled back to whatever the state minimum was. So I would prefer to get the number down. I know 13 and a half doesn't make much sense, and 12 is going to reduce your project, but I don't know if there's some other number in between. We are certainly looking to get affordable units in town, and I've said it before, I'm not opposed to housing in town because housing means people and people have money and money means business. And then we get our commercial tax base back. So I'm not opposed to residential development, but I just think this is a little tight.
So
And that includes open space. So we got the open space, which I think is a waiver. We've got the guest spaces that still need to be moved up there. We don't know exactly where they're going. We still have to move the trash receptacles. And then there was an issue with trying to restrict the buffer because we got to get the on-site wastewater treatment systems in there. So I just think everything compounded seems a little tight. And then that's right, the distance between the buildings. So that's just me speaking candidly. Now, if you don't want to respond to that yet, I don't know if there's any, I know that you said the Gribbins here. I don't know, is there anyone else in the audience or on Zoom? This is a public hearing. I'm not going to open it up. Do we have a lot of people on Zoom tonight? 6, okay. So when I open up public hearing, we may get comments from the public. But go ahead.
Okay, so just to address some of your comments and or concerns, when we started with this, we looked at the statute and we thought that sewer was going to be available to us because it runs right down
Yeah, I know.
Hopkins Hill Road,
Yeah.
right in front of our, we own, I don't know the house numbers.
I know you,
We
no.
own those 2 properties.
yeah, I was on the board when you did the original subdivision.
Right. So, we thought originally we were going to have access to sewer, and then we politely disagree. We think we can fit everything on here. And we have excellent water tables, but the commission is certainly entitled to its opinion. With regard to the trash, I think where we're headed with that is they'll be in the individual units, so we won't need a trash area at all.
Mhm.
And then with regard to moving the parking spaces closer, we have room to do that. What Pat is saying is, we can't show you the exact spot right now, but we're going to move them closer to, what building number is that? Building number 1. So we have the room to do those things. With regard to the difference between 10 feet and 6 feet, go ahead.
We are proposing 10. That was a typo or
Okay.
a misunderstanding.
So,
Good with that.
so we have, or I should say, I have, along with Mrs. Gribbin and Mr. Gribbin, identified an area that they would like enhanced along their common property line, 2 areas actually. So we're going to do that. With regard to Mrs. Potter, I haven't had an opportunity to speak to them. So I will be, because hopefully I can get in contact, or Glenn, last name? So hopefully Mrs. Potter's husband or significant other will be contacting me because she'll provide him with my number.
Was the Gribbins house the one that's to the left of the driveway?
That's
or-
correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I understood.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're working with them to stiffen up the buffer a little bit then?
Yeah, yep. And get rid of the trash area.
Now, let me just ask a question. When you're back between buildings 4 and 3, I can't tell if that's a contour line or a driveway, but what's that little access there? It looks like it'll be on the right side of building 4.
But we had initially thought that we might need that as for fire access.
Mhm.
We likely won't need that area. I've taken a look at the radiuses. The memo gave us the radiuses that we were looking for.
But you could put some extra guest spaces over there,
Yeah,
right?
that's one
Okay.
location we were thinking about using. Yep.
One of them, because then you still got the one where they suggested, which would be right off the access road, but closer to building 1. Because 4 is not a lot, I'm telling you, 4 is not a lot of guest spaces.
One of the other things I should mention is, one of the other things that I should mention that these units will all have garages. So they have 2 parking spaces, correct? Up front,
Yep.
plus the garage. So each unit technically has 3 parking spaces to begin with.
That's a good point. Thank you. Does anyone else on the board have any questions? Yes.
I think my issues are the same as the board, density. And again, it's not you, it's density is going to be an issue with the number of applications we're getting into this town. Density is an issue and we're being forced to eat some of it. I'm all about affordable housing. I think build great homes. But I think density is the issue. The other issue I have is the abutting Kent County property behind you and the fact that there's no sewer. And I don't know how we rectify that piece with, and I understand your point about the center of New England and all of that, right? It stopped beforehand. I don't know what the plans are for anything in the future, but those are my 3 issues, with density being the largest concern.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah,
or
I'll
comments?
just echo what the rest of the board says. The fact that we're being asked to, sorry. I'll just echo what the rest of the board is saying with the fact that we're having to consider zoning adjustments as well as waivers from the subdivision regulations. I think the density is the reason for those adjustments. So I think we need to reconsider that number.
Okay, if no one else on the board has any immediate comments, I'll entertain a motion to open public hearing.
I make a motion to open public hearing.
We have a motion by Member De Silva to open public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second by Member Studley. Any discussion? I don't assume. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this application? Residences at Miss Knott. Sure. Hi, name and address for the record, please.
Mary Gribben, 12 Mishnock Road. And Mr. Mulhern and I and my husband and my brother, we talked a lot about this. And the one thing we didn't talk about, and it really is not him, I sent it in my email, is the buffer. You know, we talked about it, they're going to do that, enhance along my property line. But if somewhere down the road they sell it, will that buffer have to go in perpetuity to the next owner? Because like Center of New England on Hopkins Hill Road, they didn't have to keep fixing the trees when they died. And if you've gone up Hopkins Hill Road, there's a lot of dead ones, you know. So I don't know if that's the case, if that can be done, the in perpetuity with the lot itself, with the land itself. But that was one of my other concerns. And other than that, we talked about, you know, the trash and all that stuff. So, but that was it. And I know, and the only reason I ask is because I'm on the West Greenwich Coventry town line, I get notified to have to go to West Greenwich meetings too, even though I'm in Coventry, because it affects me. And that was one of the things their town does. They do it in perpetuity when they do a buffer. So that's it. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak on this application? Seeing none. Anyone on Zoom, please raise your hand. Okay, what do we have? Two? I'll take them from the top. Who is it? Robin, if you can hear me.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yep, sure. We just need your full name and address for the record, please.
Yes, it's Robin DeLuz, and I'm on 18 Mishnock Road in Coventry.
Okay.
And I took a screenshot of the first plan that was up here that I think kind of showed more of the how it's going to affect me on my street. But I'm 2 houses down on Mishnock, so I believe I'm right next. My neighbors with Mishnock, 12 Mishnock Road. I believe so, and so I believe this street access way is going to go between our 2 houses. Is that correct?
Okay.
The access road that they're talking about?
Okay. If you can see the plan that's on the screen, the access road is going to come directly off Mishnock Road between the Gribbins and this other dwelling that I don't know the number. Do you know the number?
I think that's me.
441. So this is a vacant 2+ acre lot, 2.93, I think, with frontage on Mishnock Road, and they are going to construct it on their property. One side will be the Gribbins, the other side will be another house that this applicant owns that fronts on Hopkins Hill Road. So yes, the access road comes off Mishnock, and it goes right to the right of whichever number the Gribbins was 12.
Okay, if they're 12, like I said, I think
So-
I'm 18. I am 18, so that goes in between me and her.
No.
So
Hold on.
Mr. Luz, I'm looking at your property on the map, and it looks like on both the left and right side of you, you have vacant parcels of land that are both owned by Kent County Water Authority.
Yes.
So this project is further up on Mishnock Road, closer to Hopkins Hill.
Oh, okay, but I am close to Hopkins Hill. I'm like,
Right, but the Kent County Water Authority properties buffer you from this property.
oh, for us, that's right. Oh, thank God. Okay, so I guess my only comment that I would like to and I've spoke with both the West Greenwich Police Department because our street is half part West Greenwich, part Coventry, as you know. And I've spoken with the Coventry Police Department, and it seems everyone just says there's nothing they can do all the time. But and I don't know if this is going to affect your road into these dwellings, but 20 more families essentially will be driving down the street, and we have absolutely no one ever patrols the street. It's a cross-through street. People fly down it, going upwards of 50, 60 miles an hour at times. And we have no sidewalks, no stoplights, no speed bumps. One stop sign, thankfully, was put in by the fire department down on Mishnock Fire Department. So things slow down a little bit, but then they pick right back up again. And so I'm just really want to throw out a concern to, we're talking about more Amazon truck deliveries, more FedEx truck deliveries, more DoorDash deliveries, way more traffic coming up and down this street that is completely unhinged, wild, wild west. People fly down here. I can go down any day of the week and I can pick up nip bottles, vodka bottles, beer cans that are thrown out on my lawn. We've had crack pipes thrown out. My other neighbor has had heroin needles thrown out the window on her lawn. So I just am really concerned about the traffic and now, it's not just 20 units, it's 20 families. I don't know how many each of these units can house, but it's a lot more people on a street that is, again, people can completely let loose on the street. No one gets a ticket on the street. So I'm just interested in seeing if you've talked to the local police departments on how, have they brought in any kind of arguments against this? Because I'm sure I know they get a lot of calls from residents on our street. So I'm just wanted to kind of make that a point and hope that if this does get approved, something is done about the the kind of traffic we're getting on the street.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Next, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, could I please have your name and address for the record?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Deb Catrone. And I am on 28 Mishnock, actually right across the street from Robin, who just spoke. I still am a little confused with the access road. I do think, or right now I'm understanding it's going to be on the side of Mary Gribbin's property. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Just
So
to the
you
right.
know okay. So you know that's a hill, right? And if you're coming over the hill, you cannot see cars on the other side of the hill. So my first concern is traffic accidents happening when you're driving over that hill in either direction. That is one concern of mine. And then to piggyback on what Robin DeLuz was saying, she's absolutely right. We live in a zone that is half Coventry and half West Greenwich. Neither town likes to take responsibility for our section of the road. If something happens, West Greenwich comes back and will say, no, that's Coventry. And if something happens and Coventry comes, they'll say, oh, no, that's West Greenwich. That is a major problem on our section of street, where half is Coventry and half is West Greenwich. That is concern number 2. And then as I've been listening to the builders talk, a lot of it is I think, well, this may happen. You all will have more meetings right before this is approved with questions that are just hanging in the air. Is that right?
This is master plan. There'll be preliminary plan and then final plan. However, if everything is in order, generally they don't have to come to the commission. That can get approved administratively. But the details, the fine details, are typically not shown at this stage. What they're trying to do is get a footprint and get approved so they know how many units they can build and in what general configuration before they spend umpteen thousands of dollars finalizing engineering and doing drainage calculations only to have the plans change again. So at this point, I would say primarily it's just a concept plan. It won't deviate greatly from whatever ultimately gets approved or whatever we end up with after this master plan is developed, but it'll be refined.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and one of the items, I'll answer for you and for Mrs. DeLuz, was it, Robin? We do have comments from the police department requesting that the applicant conduct a traffic safety study. It doesn't necessarily talk about volume, but it does talk about the level of service at various intersections and safety of cars entering and exiting as far as sight distances go.
Okay. Have you by any chance entered Mishnock Road from Hopkins Hill Road yourself or any of, your board members to go over that hill?
Oh, I'm going to have to
And-
plead the fifth. I cut through all the time. No, I'm only kidding.
Just because
Not-
I'd like y'all to, take a ride over there and drive over that hill, and you cannot see the other side of the hill till you are going down that side of the hill. And man, I really, really think it's just going to be a big catastrophe traffic wise.
Yeah, they're fairly close to Hopkins Hill Road. And incidentally, this lot was cut out of, there's 2 other houses on Hopkins Hill Road now that are owned by this applicant. And this lot was created within the last few years. And we did do a site visit out there and actually walked the property. And at that point, we weren't sure what was ultimately going to get there, but the approval was to subdivide the lot so that they could create a 2.9 acre building lot. And that was the last time I was out there. I
Well,
don't know,
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, that's all right.
So if the builder owns 2 homes on Hopkins Hill?
Yeah, they're shown on the plan. Yep.
Okay, so maybe they can put the access road through one of their properties.
No,
I'm
the whole
just-
idea when they subdivided the lot was to leave those. We're trying to create affordable housing in Coventry, not eliminated it.
Okay, so actually that brings up a really good point.
And
You
incidentally,
have-
by the way, if you look at the plan, the driveway to those dwellings, it's a common driveway right now. There is another one that comes out on Mishnock, but there's already a driveway behind the 2 dwellings that links the 2 lots.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I am seeing that. And what you just mentioned about affordable housing, I totally agree with, having affordable housing. I am just curious. I mean, I am not an expert at this by any means, but from my understanding is every town has to have a certain number of affordable housing structures, per state, whatever, policies,
Correct.
laws, rules. Okay. You have not met that quota yet?
That's why we're entertaining this. It's called a comprehensive permit. We have some applications where, for the record, that's very clearly stated at the beginning. The town of Coventry is still around 5 to 6% of affordable housing. And that's not low income housing, that's affordable housing. And we're challenged with meeting the 10% goal set by the state. So as a result, these applications come to us, and home builders propose 25% of their development to include 25% of the dwellings to be affordable. So in this case, if he shows 20 units, that's 5 units that will help us meet that goal. But of course, to get those 5 extra units, we also had to accept the rest of the units, which are market rate. So even although it's 25% of this subdivision, when you start figuring how that moves the needle towards the 10%, we've got a long way to go in Coventry to get to 10%. So we get these applications quite frequently. We had one, the one I referred to earlier in another part of town, had 172 units total with 25% affordable. And because they had water and sewer, it was a much more densely created subdivision than this is. But nonetheless,
Okay.
the state has mandated minimums if we have not met our goal. To be candid, that was part of the discussion earlier. This 20 units is above the minimum, but nonetheless, it still is a comprehensive permit where they can ask for relief from zoning and density and a number of other factors to help the town achieve that goal. But we're all working towards it, and I believe that includes West Greenwich as well.
Yes, and actually, West Greenwich just said no to a company. There is towns in the state that are now fighting back against those quotas. I don't know if you're aware of that, but I know it's like Pawtucket, West Greenwich, Charlestown. There are towns now that are fighting back with the state because, and again, I am not an expert on this. I've just been reading about it, that, you can say no because of some, I don't want to continue because I'm really not sure what I'm talking about, but
we are pretty well versed in areas where we might have some room to deny or ask for an alteration to an application. And that's kind of the challenge of this board and our solicitor and our planning director to kind of work through those things. But if you just say no, which some communities have done, we may find ourselves in litigation at a very expensive or at quite a cost to the taxpayers. So we try to find the balance first.
Right. That just did happen with Greenwich, and they were able to not go to litigation. I don't know the details, but anyway, when the traffic, they're going to be doing some sort of traffic testing, or what did you say? Something about traffic safety?
At this point in the process, we have a recommendation or a request that we ask this particular home builder or developer to perform a traffic study and submit it to the town before the next plan stage so that we can review it and make sure that there's not going to be any adverse effects to the safety-wise to people that are going to be entering and exit that location or any additional burden on the intersection of Mishnock and Hopkins Hill Road by adding this many units.
Okay, and I'm sorry, who is going to be doing that study?
It would be incumbent upon them to hire an engineer, and then the town has its own peer reviewer that will review it and make comments or ask for corrections if they don't think it was done correctly.
Does someone from the town actually attend when that study's happening?
It's not an attend, it's a report. When the report comes in, then the
Okay.
town's engineer will go back out. It's a consultant engineer, it's not the town engineer that will go out and review that study and then go out and verify the facts.
Okay. Okay. All righty then. And going forward, will all these meetings be public?
Yes,
Like this, when it
Always.
pertains to this? Okay, great. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me.
okay, thank you for your comments.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now. Still have a hand up?
Hello?
Yes?
Hi, yes, Robin Deleuze from 18 Mission Road again. I just have a question about how many bedrooms are gonna?
Hold
are
on,
proposed-
hold on. We got to make sure we get your name for the stenographer. You all set?
Okay. Robin Deleuze with 18 Mishnock Road
Okay,
in Coventry.
yes.
How many, for the, if this was to say, if it did get approved for the 20 units, how many bedrooms are proposed in each unit?
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. I was making some notes as folks were speaking. Maybe you could just let us, they're all going to be 2-bedroom units? I'll let the developer put it on the record.
Mr. Chairman, these are 2-bedroom townhouse units.
Okay, thank you.
And so just since we're talking about it, I've heard the word family used a lot. And certainly there could be families here, but typically, our end user is, it might be a couple, it might be single people. We're not anticipating a bunch of kids and children. It's not like a single-family residential neighborhood.
Correct.
Right. So it's just townhouses. And so we're going to conduct a traffic study and then the town's engineer, you send that out for a peer review?
The peer review is at the discretion of the staff or the board, but we could gather feedback on that and see where we end up by the end of the discussion.
So we'll conduct that traffic study, and it's just not for our subdivisions or condominiums. It's not an overly intensive
Correct.
use here.
Yeah,
There
I'm aware
won't-
of that. Only because they brought up the issue of site distance. But while you're there, Mr. Mulhern, and do you have the approximate square footages of the townhouses? You can give me a
Want to do the
range.
math? Right now, what we have planned is 22 by 34 units. So that's times 2 stories, but we have an integral garage, so you got to cut that out. So 1,500 square
Oh, so the
feet.
garage is coming out of the first floor and then there's one
Yes.
floor above? Yeah.
It'll be, yeah, about 1,500 square, 1,496.
Yeah, so 14 to 1,600, we'll say, 2-bedroom units, and these are condominiums, and the reason I.
Townhouses.
Right,
Yeah.
so condominiums will then have condominium documents,
That is correct.
and it will be the responsibility of the condominium association to maintain that landscape
Going
buffer.
forward.
And yes, and we would have to then have the discussion about whether or not we want to put something in there that obligates them to maintain that buffer.
Yeah.
They can't just let it go and say we don't have the money. That's, we can talk about that. I just wanted to get that on the record because that was one of the concerns that I had written down. So at this point, I think we've kind of addressed everything that's been mentioned by the folks that have spoken. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
My other question after the unit, how many bedrooms, are these gonna be rented or for purchase?
They're condominiums, so they can be, most likely they'll be purchased at least initially, and I'll let Mr. Mulhern tell us whether there are any restrictions on rentals.
Thank you, that was my next question.
To to be perfectly honest, Mr. Chairman, we haven't gotten that far yet, right? So the idea would be we would sell most of them if we keep a few rentals, maybe, but we haven't honestly planned that far ahead. But, and we haven't determined sales prices. Mrs. Gribbins asked me, you know, I said to her, if you know what the market's doing 2 years from now, let me know, because by the time we're digging,
We've seen it.
yeah, you know, two to 2.5 years from now, if she knows, that would be helpful, right?
We've-
So
We've had condominiums come here with a proposed asking price, and 2 years later, it's double.
I really, you know, hopefully the market is
Hold it.
stable between now and then, but you never know. And so to comment on prices right now would be really premature.
Yep,
Okay.
thank you. Nope. Is there anyone else on Zoom? Last call. Anyone in Zoom on the audience that wants to speak on this application? Seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing. Mr. Kenny made a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Member Studley. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So here we are. So any further discussion? I don't know if you, do you want me to poll the members and find out? Because I had 1, 2, 3, 4 people out of the 6 here say they didn't like the density. And, all right, I'm sorry, 5 out of 6.
I don't.
6 out of 6. So I just,
I'd like to see us get to a number where we lessen the adjustments and waivers, the things that we're asking for, I didn't even think of it until I continue reading. It was mentioned, the distance between the buildings also. Another one that's a direct result of the increased density. If we can chip away at some of those adjustments and waivers by shrinking the density a little bit, it'll be a more palatable to me.
Suggestion I would have is drop it to 4 buildings, that's 16. I don't know how that affects your profit and loss. But 16, I mean, it's still above what the recommendation or the allowable is. But it's not 7 above, it's, what is it, 2.5 something above?
well, not only that, to get to 13.5, he'd have to give you 5 affordables. And if you go to 12, then he's down to 12 units and you only get 3 affordables. So
Yeah, but I think going down to 16.
no, so do I. I was agreeing with you. A
lot of it go away.
Okay, so we,
My suggestion,
so we think the trash will go away. Multifamily zone, that's going to be a given. The landscape buffer, I don't know if that can be modified at all. And we got the building.
Distances.
Yeah. You might still need a waiver on the distances, but it may not be that. It might not be 14 to 18 feet. You'll get the extra parking spaces for the guests, and then the open space and recreation area will increase to something more than 21%. Dimensions of private road. Does anyone else have any comments? Or we decide what?
I mean, the only comment I have is, maybe we reschedule this, give him time to go back and relook at the plan. I doubt he's ready to
Do you want
have
to do
that
that?
discussion on reductions and replacement.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot. If you want to redo the plan, we can continue this.
We take a 5-minute recess?
Sure can. Sure, sure. I don't think so.
Approach?
Yep. Yes, back on the record. Yeah.
So my understanding is master plan approval would be granted for 16 units with 4 affordable. Is that correct? Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, we were asking to see if that was palatable. I have to find out, excuse me. Do we have to actually see a plan, or at master plan, are we able to just work off of something that's
We would-
general, amend the motion, or how does it work?
We were just discussing that. I think that it is fine to give a master plan approval. I think the pieces that you'll want to get, we'll want some guidance from is if you have any direction on the arrangement of buildings. And what I would suggest is if the board is amenable to a master plan decision tonight with 16, we would add a condition of approval on that. We would also add a condition of approval that would suggest for the applicant to review and address all of the TRC comments, as well as the comments they've heard tonight, and to seek to reduce the adjustments and waivers as part of preliminary. It may be very difficult tonight to actually get through the nitty-gritty details of exactly which ones, but I also think when it comes to you a preliminary plan, you have an opportunity to reconsider those issues. If you're not liking where the dumpster is at preliminary, if you don't like the specific way a treatment was handled, you can handle that at preliminary. So there's a certain level of detail here where you might not get it till preliminary anyway. We won't have the traffic until preliminary. So my suggestion would be you could consider a decision tonight on 16. If you want to offer direction on how you want specific arrangements, if the board has a vision, we'd like a little direction on the sidewalk issue, which we haven't touched on yet. So that would be helpful for the applicant to know what they need to come back with at prelim, knowing that they need to deliver on certain issues.
Okay.
So If I could, so that when you guys are deliberating, you can take this into consideration, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the interior sidewalk, down, to, Mishnock Road, if we're not going to have trash over there any longer, and if we're not going to have guest parking in that spot, I don't see why we'd need a sidewalk to those areas, right? It only adds to impervious area anyway.
It's the affordable housing component, I think, to provide access to the main road, a potential bus stop. That's, I think, why we're looking, unless, if planning wants to add any, am I headed in the right direction with that?
So I think, I don't want to, we're all making comments. I don't think that the change in units from 20 to 16 or the relocation of the dumpster necessarily changes planning staff's view that sidewalks are a good amenity. I will make this note. This application, we were focused on the sidewalks on the subject property. In the discussion at TRC, particularly not on the comment section, but in the discussion, the planning, the DPW director and I had a discussion about that concept, and the DPW director suggested he would be concerned if we had sidewalks that went to Mishnock and then didn't connect to the sidewalks on Hopkins Hill Road because we're leaving pedestrians in this section of Mishnock. So while I had thought the priority might be let's get sidewalks on the subject property, his review was no, we don't want to leave those residents right there on the side of a road because that's a tricky area of Mishnock. Now, that is another off-site improvement, and as a consideration, this applicant probably hasn't done the crunching of numbers on what that may be, particularly with what would be a different project portfolio with 16 units. So at some point, my only consideration is if you want sidewalks, I think that it's fair to still seek them. We'd be looking for the connectivity, and that'd be an off-site improvement in the public right-of-way to connect the subject site to the Hopkins Hill. In my opinion, this is not an absolute clear, we absolutely need sidewalks. In some cases, I would say that. In this case, I think it's more in that middle area. That's the discretion of the board. You can certainly ask questions and review that issue.
Is that the absolute minimum for the driveway that's going to be allowable? What do we got? Curb on both sides and 22 feet, or gutters on both sides? Is that right? And 22 feet paved?
22
That's what
feet
proposed.
with 1 foot of Cape Cod berm on each side. That is as tight as we would go, but we didn't have pushback or concerns from TRC on the width of this.
No, I was just trying to work something so we had enough room for a pedestrian and travel in public and not upsetting the stormwater calculations and still getting people where they needed to go.
Yeah. I think it's fair that the sidewalks in this project, it is, I like the idea of getting sidewalks where we can, but this becomes more expensive with the off-site improvement to connect the subject property sidewalks to the existing town sidewalk network. If this project was in the middle of a village, if this project was, for example, we had other projects that were similar, where we sought sidewalks, where they were right on very active pedestrian roadways, I'd say we want it and we really want it. This is,
We just had one, we didn't get it.
this is more where I could see this project going either way with sidewalks. I leave that to the discretion of the commission.
And incidentally, the off-site improvements, we wouldn't ask you to pay for those. They'd come out of your impact fees, right? Those are,
No,
they wouldn't?
no, we would be
They would?
seeking,
We
if
would?
there's a commitment that we want an off-site improvement, we've generally sought to ask the applicant to make that improvement.
The ones
Or
I
else
know-
the project leaves.
I
the
think
town
Crompton
within-
Meadows, we took them out of the impact fees, but I'm not sure.
Like, as before my time.
Yeah, I know.
I can only tell you on the projects I've worked on, when the development results in the need for an off-site improvement, we seek that
Yeah.
as a condition of
Amazing.
approval. I'm just letting you know that kind of builds this into a bigger ask for sidewalks. We don't want to leave the pedestrians getting to the end of Mishnock without a path, but that makes it a bigger ask.
Okay. All right. Yeah, or I'll stick a pin in it till preliminary. I'm not sure. Because I think we got a lot to get through tonight. I think the big thing was the density, and then, so did you envision the general locations of the buildings to be did you get an idea which ones might shift where, or is it like, now we're gonna have to look at it and get back to you?
So I think, so obviously with the comprehensive plan, you're entitled to ask for variances. But what I heard a couple times is distance to the buildings. So if we're eliminating one building, I would think distance between buildings can improve. We have approved test holes for septic systems and also for drainage. And so we're still working around those, and, we're not going to go back and try and get 10 more test
And I
holes.
wasn't going to try to get you to commit to exact locations. I just wanted to get some flavor for what we're doing.
So
because it's,
clearly there'll be more room if there's one less building, right? And so theoretically, I hope there'd be less impervious area as well. And with regard to the wetlands, we have an approved delineation from DM. That's how we got this far to begin with.
Yep.
So.
I saw that. Yeah. Yeah. That's just your restriction up there. So you've got a little bit of area to work with. Trying to think if there's anything else in there. So it's just what we're trying to do is come up with a way that we can get this thing on the docket tonight. We got a planning director's report that refers to the 20. We've got variances that still may be in effect, but we can't commit to the distances or the lot coverage.
It is
So-
fair to say that the discussion on adjustments and waivers, we can have that same discussion and we can consider the value of the adjustments and waivers at prelim. I think it's fair to say the applicant couldn't tonight address in detail.
Right.
I do think a condition of approval on the number of units can address that and correct the record that this approval would only be for 16 units and not 20. I think we'd add a condition of approval to ask the applicant to directly address the comments, discussion, TRC comments. And I think the real question is if there are areas of comment that the board didn't necessarily agree with. I think sidewalks is a good example. I'm curious on the board there. And the only comment I might have as we look at this is that if there's more space on the site to work with, more space in between buildings, that's great. I think that there's an OWTS system that is shown in the most easterly corner of the property that is eating into a bit of their buffer to the residential neighbors. I might suggest let's move that OWTS system inward to the site.
Yeah.
Little adjustments like that, I think that the staff and the applicant could work with to reach the best outcome for reducing buffers, getting the best treatments on the edges of the property.
But as Mr. Mulhern said, he's got test holes in certain places. He doesn't want to go out and start having to do new test holes, like no big shifts in these locations. If he can salvage some of those locations and just move the buildings, that's what he's going to try to do. But yeah, maybe it might work out where it's just the one that's the closest to the fence, but by the same token, that was the one that was, well, depends what building goes with which, but so generally, and again, this is kind of for whoever may want to consider to make a motion. We know how many units.
Yep.
Oh, geez. I got AI's telling me what I'm supposed to say. She
Yeah.
found it on the web. My phone's not even on.
I think you must have Gemini. You said generally. It said Gemini thought you were talking to it.
And other than that, we can generally talk about what waivers may be sought at later and
Yeah.
and
You have,
vote.
you have a right to still consider the details of the adjustments and waivers delivered to you at preliminary plan and to weigh your consideration of that at preliminary. You're not vesting them in certain waivers. What you would be vesting them at master plan is 16 units, but the arrangement of those 16 units and the details around what waivers you would consider to achieve them, that's still open for your consideration and deliberation at preliminary plan.
So generally speaking, the findings of fact are still, for the most part, accurate. And it would just be,
And the only reason that we wouldn't continue this master plan to see an amendment is because of timelines?
The applicant could concede an extension. So if the applicant conceded an extension, they may say, I'm not going to be ready by next month. I might need a few months on this. And then we'd say, that's fine. And we'd ask the applicant to acknowledge on the record that they extend the clock, the statutory required state clock on this. This applicant was considered complete less than a month ago. The clock on a master plan, I think the clock on a master plan of a comp permit is 60 days. That's off the top of my head. So we'd be seeking an extension to some form of certainty that we know the clock would not run out until this board had a chance to see it again. And you'd still have the authority to consider changes and seek extensions to that clock again, as you see fit. The applicant can concede the clock, and I think the applicant, working with this applicant, I don't think that'd be the big issue here. I think that the idea is, does the board feel comfortable with what you see enough to know that you can see it at preliminary, or do you wish to see something more detailed at master?
That's why I ask, because I'm comfortable with the number where we're at now, but there's still a lot is still hanging in the wind. And to approve it, to go to preliminary and have to rehash all that out, I think a lot of it could be cleared up here at master with an amended plan.
That's fair.
That's how I feel.
I concur. I mean, I think we have an obligation to see the plan. If he's going to remove buildings, we need to see where they're going. We have an obligation to the public to see the plan before it starts.
Do you think you could do something in a month, with 2 months? So just removal of one building?
My, my understanding is do you have a full agenda in August?
July will be a busy meeting
July,
for us.
excuse me.
August could be busy, but we can continue this matter to a date certain. If the applicant wished, we could continue it to August or September, and then we'd just be working with the applicant to seek a certain extension of the clock to accommodate whatever date we seek. A little bit of the applicant would have work to do. I would note that I think July and August will be busy meetings for us. So that's up to the applicant to consider, and then our motion would be continue to a date certain.
I feel like the bulk of it has been hashed out. You know, we're where we need to be. We just need to check that box. I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a comment on that? You want to see the plan? Rather than try to make a motion on
May
it?
I address the board, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman? So in speaking with Pat to alleviate your concerns, it's not a big deal for us so we have 5 buildings, there's going to be 4. So the distances between buildings are going to change for the better. If we can eliminate the minor waiver between 6 feet and 10 feet where we're putting up a fence, you prefer landscaping as opposed to a fence? Is that what?
I prefer landscape buffering as opposed to.
So we would work on that. Once again, test holes aren't going to change no matter how long we kick it out, because we have those holes in certain locations for a reason, right? Our soil evaluator, our biologist, everybody. So, and DM came out and saw them and they're approved. So, but with regard to the other things, I mean, you could hear us next week. We're not adjusting that much. The couple pages will be adjusted because the variances we're asking for will lessen, right? So it's just, they're going to move some lines. And so I certainly don't want to be kicked back 2 to 3 months. And if you guys would feel comfortable, and I heard this gentleman over here say, like to see the plan, but if you felt comfortable enough knowing that we're going to be going from 5 to 4 units, the test holes aren't going to change. We're going to move the parking, the guest parking, and hopefully we're reducing some impervious area with all this. So everything all of the concerns I've heard from the board they might not all be rectified perfectly, but they'll all be addressed. Everything should improve a little, but the critical data is there now. So, I would love a vote this evening, but if you can't, what's the earliest
Our next available meeting is July 22nd.
And I know there's a big project on the agenda. Would we
There
go
will be,
first?
yeah, we would
I
take
wanna-
old business first.
And it looks like we need to render a decision within 60 days. So
That's, yeah.
are we over on
No,
the
we're-
60 days by?
We would
couple days, or are we
be, you know,
close?
we're getting close. We probably rendered this application complete probably within the last couple of weeks. I know we've been working with the applicant to get some materials over the course of the last 2 weeks. So we're probably right at that point where the 60-day clock, you know, is probably even just starting. I mean, we've been in working with this applicant to try to get materials. So I don't think the clock is going to be the challenge. I think the applicant would consider extending as we need to.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure that we're not going to run out the clock before the next meeting.
I don't think it would run out the clock before the next meeting because we're 30 days away from that, and we are certainly not over 30 days. I think this has been rendered complete very recently based on the materials that, yep, no, I hear you, Dennis. I think it will be rendered, it will be a decision that we will make, and if there's any clock issue, I think it's something we could address at July 22nd.
What would you envision the time from, let's just say for the sake of argument that you got the master plan tonight, when would you be back with preliminary? Is that like 2-3 months, or is that like 4 or 5?
Yeah, I'd say somewhere, we're beholden to DEM always, right? And so you got to get a RIP-Ds and,
Okay.
so when would you say, Patrick?
Now, Doug, there's no combining of master and preliminary on these, right?
I mean, technically, the master plan stage is a completely optional stage. This applicant is actually within their right to withdraw this master plan and then just come back at preliminary. At that point, that means that they're moving forward with detailed stormwater design, the extra costs of the traffic review. I think the idea is right now we have something where it's more malleable and you can still have comment and shift things without this being a great re-engineering.
That's why I kind of brought it up, because we've passed stuff at master plan approval, and then at preliminary, they come back and say, oh, DEM said this, we had to shift this, we had to move that, and the plan's not exactly the same anyway.
Yeah.
It's a concept plan.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do, is see if there's some way, because to be quite honest, I don't know if I want to piggyback two
Yeah, no.
applications next month.
I think ultimately that's the call of the board.
And it's at his peril. It's at the applicant's peril. If he comes back at preliminary and the stuff's not where it's supposed to be, or we don't like it, then he's got to go back and shift them and come back again.
That is absolutely correct. So at the end of the day, if you give a master plan approval, and this is up to the board, and you could take a poll of the members that would feel comfortable. If the master plan is approved tonight at 16 units, what they've walked away with is they vested 16 units, they vested the general concept, but what we haven't vested is necessarily all those same details on the adjustments and the waivers. We would have a condition that would seek for them to address those, and then we would readdress waivers adjustments at preliminary plan.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So Doug will tell you, we've met numerous times about this. So the intention is to get the project approved.
No, I know that. I don't like to hold
So-
anything up.
No, so, I can't, unless you can, envision something that what we need is DM to approve the drainage. Other than that,
Yeah. No. I understand. That's what I'm saying. So it's not uncommon if we approved all these, if you told us exactly where the buildings were going tonight, you could come back in 4 months and say, DEM told us we had to do this, this, and this. I had to shift 2 buildings over, and they're not going to be where they were shown on the plan. Generally speaking, master is to get the number of units and the general layout and some of the other concepts, the buffers and some of the other things that we talked about. We got the driveway width nailed down to the minimum. Sidewalks are still up in the air. So that's all. I was just trying to keep the process moving. And as I indicated, the way I understand it, and that's why I asked the question, if we did it that way and you come back at preliminary and things aren't where we envisioned them to be tonight, and you have to make changes, that's on you, as opposed, to get that comfort level, it's going to cost you a month. And it sounded like you were willing to say, I know things aren't going to change that much. I would accept if you just told me the density, this, that, and the other. And if I come back at preliminary and you don't like it, I understand. I may have to go back and change it, or I'm going to get a no vote.
I'll be addressing the location of the buildings with Doug, and I'm sure he'll be.
Well,
communicating.
right, but he still has to communicate to us at a meeting, so it's not going to save you time. I mean,
Well, but
granted,
I
we
mean,
rely on the
My
planning staff.
intention isn't to come back here with 4 buildings in a row in one spot.
Yeah,
Right. And so I just asked Patrick if he knew off the top of his head which building we would eliminate. Do you?
I can speculate it on that and give you kind of an idea of what I'm thinking, just sitting over here listening to the conversation. The 2 buildings that make the biggest difference in eliminating are the 2 buildings to the north. I can't see the numbers, but I want to say it's 3 and 4.
Just don't touch the screen. You can point.
Yeah, buildings 3 and 4. One of those 2 buildings, I'm likely planning on eliminating, right? That will allow me to shift a couple of buildings, get a little bit more space between them, potentially relocate that leach field that's causing the buffer issue in the southeast corner of that area. And then another side note, we'd be able to use some of those parking spaces that are already drawn as guest parking spaces, so that will help with that. We're talking about trash waivers. If we go individual trash, those waivers go away. But yeah, that's my thoughts at the moment. You know, and maybe a slight tweak of the orientation of the roadway just to make it.
Okay. I would have thought, not being an engineer, that it would have been the ones that were closer to the properties on Hopkins Hill Road that seemed to be a little close to their line and close there, as opposed to the ones that were furthest away. But I think I know why you might have said, no, those are probably the ones that require you to put down the most asphalt and roadway, and there's probably some other factors in there. So I don't know. Okay. So what do you guys want to do? Do you want to have them come back with another plan, or do you think we could, it's up to you. I really do.
I think you might have to pull the board for that one.
Yep. Okay.
Um,
Katie, any thoughts on that now that we've vetted this some more? If you still think you want to see the plan, just say so.
So I'll be upfront. I didn't want to get in the way of the board. I'm a no on this because of density. Flat out. I believe the density issue is a quality of life issue in this town. And we're going to continually get hit by it. We're going to see it down already in some of these other developments we have. And for me, it's not about the houses, the builder. It's about the density issue. We're starting to pack houses in constantly throughout the entire community. For me, it's a no based off of density, public safety, and a quality of life issue.
So if it was 13 units, you'd still be a no?
He's within what the law has tied our hands on this, on the 25%, right? On the number, right? They've tied our hands when, especially, so if there was sewer, right, he could have come in and asked for that density and our hands would have been tied.
Yep.
Right, to grant it if there was sewer. There is not sewer. Right, so now it's septic. So for me, if the community is going to force our hands on the way the law is written, then we need to hold that line too, because there's going to be others that are going to come and ask for the same thing. So again, it's nothing to do with the developer. This is based off of the law that we currently have to deal with, that we're getting crushed on communities across the state.
Yeah, that was kind of my, if you remember when I made my comment earlier, we just came off of that other project and we had to hold them back to the 162, which was the minimum, not one more over. It's just when it came to a number like 13 and a half, it was kind of hard to say, well, he's not going to, no, I know. So it's either 12 or 13 and then we only get 3 affordable. So at least with the 16, I think we were getting 4, which is, I think, where the other board members were
But when you
coming
look
from.
at how many are coming into this town, it's kind of ugly right now.
But it sounded, I guess I appreciate you telling me that, because I think what would have happened is if he came back in a month with the other one and we went through another public hearing, we got a room full of people that aren't here tonight and now they're weighing in on this. It wasn't going to change
Again, I'm
for you
just
anyway.
vote.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to come back, I'm not going to hold it up, but I'm a no vote because of the density.
Whether he comes back or he
Whether he
doesn't.
comes back or not.
Mr. Kenny,
I'm okay.
you're okay with acting tonight on the density and then leaving the rest for preliminary?
Yeah.
Mr. Burke?
I would want to see it again
You,
with an amended master plan.
okay, so you do not want to give a vote on the master plan tonight unless you have a plan in front of you?
Correct.
Ultimately, we don't have to approve the adjustments and the waivers at preliminary either. So it's at the applicant's peril if he continues forward and we don't have that information. So I have no problems with them proceeding forward.
Don't need to see master plans.
Okay, and I kind of feel the same way. I mean, I got enough of, because it's at your peril. If you come back with a plan that doesn't have the stuff shown where, and I think you're getting the feedback tonight, the things that we're concerned about, if those things aren't addressed, then we're going to ask you to change the plan the next time, and it'll just be time on the other end as opposed to time on the front end.
It's all going to come out
Okay,
that, sorry.
all right, so to move the matter forward then, I'll entertain a motion one way or the other.
John, do you have it or you want me to do it? Oh, thanks.
He was thinking.
Shouldn't have asked that.
Just remember. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a favorable motion of project name Residence on Mishnock, comprehensive permit, major land development, master plan Hopkins Hill LLC, address Mishnock Road and Hopkins Hill Road, assessors plot 5, lot 2, zone R20, lot size 2.3 acres, existing use is vacant. The proposed use is 20 multifamily residential dwelling units. We have recommended, or the density be reduced from 20 to 16 multifamily residential units, which effectively takes one of the 5 buildings out of the project. I'd like to incorporate the staff report. By doing this, eliminating the one building and talking with the applicant, a lot of the technical review committee findings will be addressed or should be addressed to minimize any future waivers or buffering issues.
Mr. Kenny, if I may, as you're describing these issues, if you don't mind, as part of your motion, identifying the new conditions of approval. I think conditions of approval is where we'd want to land these concepts of no more than 16 units and a condition of approval for the applicant to address the concerns and come back and seek to reduce the adjustments. So if you don't mind.
Okay.
And then the one thing, as you can have this as part of your consideration of the motion, but I'm curious where the board wants to go on sidewalks. That's direction I think the applicant would like to hear as well.
Don't forget the 25% affordable either. 25%. Oh, okay. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Kenny. Does anyone have any thoughts on the sidewalks? I'm going to start with you, Mr. DeLuca. Do you want him to put a sidewalk from the development down to Mishnock Hill Road and then potentially have to connect that with Hopkins Hill Road? Or do you feel that sidewalks really aren't warranted for the 16 units?
I would like sidewalks. I think it just adds more character to the.
Thank you.
I like the sidewalks. I like the idea. I just think it just adds more character to the whole development instead of just looking at nothing. Has something for people who are living in the neighborhood to walk down or.
Mr. Studley?
On the one hand, if this was on the other side of Central New England, where there are businesses that you could walk to, I think it would make perfect sense. As Doug noted, this is a little bit more of a gray area. So with nothing to walk to, my first thought was, I don't think that we need sidewalks. My only question would be, where does the bus pick up? If there is a bus pickup, where would it pick up? And if it's on Mishnock Road, then in that case, I think sidewalks make more sense.
I agree with that with possible bus stop.
Mr. De Silva, sorry, sidewalks.
One of the biggest issues we have in this town is sidewalks. How many times have you guys heard people come to you and say sidewalks, whether it's Tioga Avenue or whatever, for kids getting on buses and everything else? Sidewalks.
Kenny.
I don't have an issue with eliminating sidewalks for two reasons. One, the setup of this development really doesn't warrant having a lot of children. Therefore, I don't think that should be an issue. If I'm not mistaken, there is not a bus stop on Mishnock Road over there. And the other reason would be not to burden the contractor with having to connect from Hopkins Hill to this property when he's already ceded to eliminate a building at our request by dropping the units.
Mr. Burke.
I'm in favor of sidewalks on property as well as the off-site development of the sidewalk to Hopkins Hill Road. Kind of to piggyback with what Mr. Studley said, I know Center New England is on the other side of the road. There's no business on the development side. I don't have a crystal ball. I would anticipate at some point in the future, a traffic light at Center New England Boulevard and Hopkins Hill Road, and hopefully a crosswalk. So I'm just looking very far down the road, no pun intended. So I would like to see sidewalks and the off-site improvement.
Okay, so what do we got without me?
John, you're a no sidewalk.
3-2, and I think I would like to see the sidewalks as well, not to burden you with something, but just planning for the future. We just had one, we tried to get them after the fact and it became a challenge. Unless there's some compelling reason where you can't get a stormwater permit, I think I'd like to see sidewalks on the plan when you come back.
For the board's edification, there is no bus route in the area. However, another piece of valuable information is that the intersection of Hopkins Hill Road and Center of New England Boulevard currently doesn't have a light, but the town is actively making plans to add a light, which means there would be a designated crossing location from the west side of Hopkins Hill Road over to the east side where you would connect to the Center of New England Boulevard businesses. So the businesses are a bit of a walk, but there would be a direct connection on a sidewalk network. That's for your consideration.
Okay, sounds like sidewalks.
Conditions of approval for this project is reducing the density from 20 down to 16, addressing all of the comments in the technical review report and the staff report to include the inclusion of sidewalks.
Oh, Doug, is that sufficient the way we get it read now? Incorporate.
I'd like one of the condition that was just read, which was to address the comments. I'd like for that condition to also indicate to reduce the requested waivers and adjustments. That leaves with the intent clear that we're seeking to reduce that, and then the applicant can show us a preliminary plan how they've made good faith on that commitment.
Additionally, to address the waivers and request for relief, and address those and try and minimize all of those conditions. So when we get a preliminary plan back, a lot of those have been addressed and noted.
That's one. And then to be fair on the sidewalks, it's clear we're looking for both the on-site and the exterior construction, the off-site construction. So get the buildings down to Mishnock and then pick it up from Mishnock and build sidewalks to Hopkins Hill.
Yeah, I think that's all that's going to make sense. Yep.
To readdress the sidewalk issue, we're looking at bringing the sidewalk down from the project to Mishnock, and then the off-site improvement from Mishnock to connect to the sidewalk on Hopkins Hill.
And then I might ask one last piece, now that we're talking about sidewalks on Mishnock. That would be public infrastructure. We're going to be asking for the applicant to submit a bond estimate at the preliminary plan phase. That will be a separate condition of approval. That would now be public infrastructure, which prior to this, the project didn't conceive of that.
Additionally, since the sidewalks are considered public infrastructure, a bond would be required from the applicant for that particular part of the project.
That good enough? Does he have to incorporate any of this staff report at all?
And I think I hit the beginning of his motion. He
Okay,
did. That was,
great.
there was-
Notwithstanding those changes.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
The
Okay.
motion read clean to me. I know there was
And-
discussion, but it read clean all the way through to me.
And, okay. And could I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Studley. Any discussion, comments? Hearing none. I'll poll the board. Mr. De Silva,
No.
Mr. Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Burke,
I did want to see the master again, but I agree with the everything that was said in the motion, so I'm a yes.
Mr. Delude,
Yes.
Studley.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. 5-1. Guess that's it. Yep. Okay.
Question? Still about this project, is that okay?
Yeah.
No? Yes?
Voted. The matter, we haven't moved to the next agenda item.
Yeah, I don't think we can revisit.
Okay.
Votes closed.
Okay. James, you can always email me in the meeting.
Okay. Next item. Oh, we got a lot to do. This is the big one now. That was the small one. It's a kennel. No.
It's a dog park, huh?
Yeah, we need a dog park. You can't get one done. Okay, this is a recommendation to the town council for discussion, vote, or other action. Flat River Reservoir, Johnson's Pond redevelopment area plan.
I'll jump in just to give background on this matter.
Yep.
This redevelopment plan was created by the Coventry Redevelopment Agency through consulting assistance by GZA. The Planning Commission's role in its review of this document is narrowed to a review of whether this document is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. I'd note that the comprehensive plan was locally adopted most recently at the town council's June 9th meeting. That is now for local decision-making considered our plan of record. I'd also note for those members who were here and present when we were drafting that comprehensive plan, we had specific sections of that comprehensive plan that were added to essentially set the stage for this redevelopment plan. There is a representative from GZA on Zoom. They were able to attend virtually. They did also provide us with a summary memo that described how they created the plan, a little background on how the plan addresses state law. That memo is a broad memo. It talks about things the council will have to focus on in their review. Our review is just narrowed to, is this plan consistent with the comp plan? With that being said, I'll turn the floor to the GZA person on the floor. That's Kevin. He's probably he's raising his hand. So if you don't mind letting Kevin in, and he can take it from here.
Hi, Kevin, could you just state your full name and principal business and address for the record, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Kevin, you came in for a second, but then we lost you. You still there?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Keep going.
My name's Kevin Williams. I'm principal planner at GZA. Give me a second on the address. 1 second. So our office is in Providence at 188 Valley Street, Suite 300.
Yeah, I know where it is. Go ahead. Okay.
And as it may please the members of the commission, I prepared a brief PowerPoint. It's certainly more elaborate than Mr. McLean and our memo has provided. I'm happy to either just sort of reframe the memo that was provided or just show you this brief PowerPoint so you have a tour of the plan and its intended purposes.
Yeah, is that something we're going to be able to do?
Yeah, I think, Kevin, if you don't mind, through your end on the Zoom interface, request access to screen share, and I think that's the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me find that. Yeah, I don't really see that. There we go.
There you are. We see you now, Kevin.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll share. Actually, I should be able to. I'll share this, and just let me know when enough is enough. So I don't want to take up too much.
You're
time.
fine, Kevin. I think if Kevin, if you can do is like a 3-minute overview and then allow for questions, that might be the best approach.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll try to start with this. I'm not even sure what I'm sharing at this point. Hold on a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what's before the commission is basically a plan that covers kind of two parts. One is a boundary and one is the actual plan. The boundary itself is an area that's broader than the reservoir and the dam itself. And I'll try to discuss that as I can. Why this plan is important to litigation. One, it documents a valid public purpose. Now, after all these years, this is an actual public asset, and documenting what its public purpose is related to access to recreation, health and well-being of the community, strengthening the evidentiary record on why this taking was critical, particularly given the condition of the pond itself, which has had several years of environmental conditions, as have been documented from some past work sampling that's been done at the site, as well as obviously the long range damage that was done from lack of maintenance to the dam itself. It informs the evaluation context. How much was that deferred maintenance that hadn't been performed? How much had accrued in cost? How fines and penalties, so on and so forth, and what is a normal state of good repair going to be? It also shows that there's actual public action coming out of the court proceedings. Is they wanted to see that there's clear and immediate action being taken to provide enhanced public access. So why a redevelopment plan? Well, the lower water levels, the lack of long-term maintenance have related just in the past year, multiple DEM no access warnings related to cyanobacteria. That, as well as probably nitrogen loading coming from septic systems around the increasingly dense residential areas around the pond, the warming of the pond, and just lack of regular maintenance in terms of the water quality, and that lowering event have probably had a series of sort of continuous impacts on the pond. So a redevelopment plan will help steward this in a proper public facility, a public recreational amenity that needs to look towards public health, safety, and welfare. So those ecological impacts, the public recreational use, which is on and off delimited. It's also delimited by actual functional access. The only way you can get a boat on the pond is down by Zeke's Bridge, and at Harkney Hill, I guess you're blocked by the height of the bridge access there, so you can't go onto it to the rest of the reservoir. So you have limited natural access because of all the private development that's clustered around the pond, and basically the limited public ownership is only vested in a few locations. So that's, those are the primary reasons. The history of the pond, 1878 is when it came and created. 2004 is when it became Johnson Pond, town of Coventry, and GZA was retained in April, May of 2025. And we had a vote by the RDA, I think 2 months ago, completing their approval of the plan. Now it goes to town council for approval. They have to make 2 resolution approvals, one documenting and approving the boundary area. And the idea is we did that in a very supple way, because the terrain upland rolling down into the pond, whether it's stormwater runoff, whether it's nitrification coming from leaching fields, or whether it's access into the site, signage, wayfinding, trail connection, parking, all of these things bear on the actual use of the pond. So sorry, I'm hopping around a little bit, but so let me go over some of this less critical aspect. Okay, so we've had multiple public meetings, constant hundreds and hundreds of comments that have informed this plan. And the main thing I want to draw out of this is kind of the bookend limits that were sort of established in these public meetings. You have some members of the public that desire very little additional access and to really limit it. I am very aware, have witnessed firsthand, have heard anecdotally about the amount of traffic, particularly during the summer months, that's present, but also this legal requirement on the other side to provide real open Coventry access, not just pond abutters. And so the idea was, let's create options by surveying the land use and potential availability of land, around the pond, identify additional assets like Stump Pond that might afford additional recreational assets. But let's look at the lowest cost alternatives to meet the basic objectives that are required by the court and subject to the taking. Enhanced public access, in multiple forms, boat access, as potentially swimming, trail linkages, passive recreational space, these type of things. So we found 2 locations that would fit that. One at the dam property, and I'll just hop to those. So actually, this is the boundary. And we want it to be broad. This is a long-term plan, one which the sunset will be set by town council, but it allows you to kind of adapt and move within this framework as you sort of set up administrative management, which is the most key part of this, is how do you police it? How do you regulatorily advance it? How do you fund what you're doing? All of that is in the plan. Over time, you want to have options to enhance additional access, to potentially acquire land if needed, to serve the purposes of the town of Coventry. So this is the broad boundary. It is in the full plan. I just wanted to relate to that. And then we have the dam property. And here it's sort of very difficult to see. Hopefully you'll have had an opportunity to review, but there's basically an upland, boat and trailer storage area that's present here in this area that would have a gate and then an access gate before going over the pedestrian path that's there. It's complicated. This is really the only location that you can get this type of access where there's enough. And then we have a sort of a circuitous road that goes down the terrain and loads kind of into the center of this wooden area where there is some drop down into a beach on the far end over here where my cursor's at. And that also affords an opportunity down here to potentially have a swimming area. And there are a lot of connections down into, we're proposing like into the dam area and back into the wetland area, a series of connective paths so people can really enjoy this sort of, the passive recreational area, which is a lovely environment and could be greatly improved with a little bit of maintenance. So really making this a broader recreational framework, not just boating, but an enhancement of the pedestrian access and the bike trail corridor. The other site that we have, oops, I think I put the same concept on both here. For the other the location is Francis Sherman Park, and for some reason, I have not gotten that in here. Let me just show you this. This is actually the council presentation for tomorrow. So the other location is Francis Sherman Park. We're estimating that's at $1.5 million. This is primarily an ecological enhancement. The area is widely overgrown. The trailheads going out to the water are completely flooded. So the idea is like a series of boardwalk improvements, kayak, a paddleboard access, potentially like a passive public space with a pavilion might be here where you could have maybe weddings or just a park area, traditional park area where people can barbecue, enhancing the parking lot, including the wayfinding signage, but really cleaning this park up so it's an actual usable enhanced park. And then let me go back to
behind the fire station.
So I could go into the costs, but basically the steps that you wanted to know beyond from review to adoption. So with planning commission, town council, designation and adoption, and state review and approval by Department of Administration. And maybe one of the things I'll just call out, if folks have not read the memorandum, and it is actually interlaced in here, but let me just discuss very briefly this summary memorandum. Sorry, I was like all prepared for this and I wasn't sure. Everything kind of fell apart here while I was preparing here. But so the key parts of the consistency of the comprehensive plan, if you go to the natural resource and water quality section, the redevelopment plan advances the comprehensive plan's environmental protection restoration goals by recommending an environmental management plan to improve water quality. So it's not just recreation. You must commune these two notions of environmental quality and recreational access to have a quality environment. I think everybody knows that. We've heard anecdotal notions of a decrease in what was once a very supple fish habitat, and that the quality of fish that are coming out are not as good. Obviously, we had the multiple DEM warnings. So one of the key parts is establishing beyond just policing the pond and maintaining the dam, also enhancing and maintaining the water quality, and starting that with a baseline study. Open space and recreational access. The redevelopment plan advances the comp plan's open space and recreational goals by promoting equitable access, supporting improvements to recreational facilities, and expanding diverse recreational opportunities. Land use and public ownership. The redevelopment plan supports comprehensive plans land use framework by expanding public access to key natural assets and increasing publicly owned open space. Infrastructure and facility improvements. The redevelopment plan supports infrastructure related goals by advancing targeted improvements to Johnson Pond, such as expanding recreational facilities, upgrades to dam and water management systems, and the incorporation of green infrastructure to enhance informant and environmental performance. So broadly, the redevelopment plan reflects the comp plan's emphasis on meaningful public participation and the responsible balance of community investment with environmental sustainability. And overall, over a 10-year framework that could be expanded, that including both capital cost for both parks, the connective tissue in the dam spillway area to provide these sort of lily pads and walking paths, as well as signage, wayfinding, gates, management, as well as environmental monitoring, long-term maintenance of the dam, long-term maintenance of the pond. You're looking at about a $24 million cost over 10 years. Of that, about 10 million of that is in the park improvements, and about 5 million is in longer range dam improvements. Now the dam is currently in what I will call a stable, but not good state of repair, a fair state of repair after emergency repairs were performed, precedent to multiple investigations. We're still doing some work with the DEM on that, but it's in a stable situation that's cured. Basically it's potential failure and absolutely state of decay. So any questions, I would be happy to answer them. And sorry for hopping around. I did not want to take too much of your time.
So maybe just to summarize, this plan really, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a roadmap to basically manage and maintain the pond, both ecologically, environmentally, and the physical state, so the residents at some point, well, I should just say to preserve the asset.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And to enhance access, like those are, yeah, I think you nailed it.
And the possibility of enhancing access if they want to spend the money and do that, because that's the council's. The roadmap's there for them to implement, but it's,
Yeah,
everything is
it's-
there.
But yeah, it is. And there's actually a 20-page, literally step-by-step, like 4-part step-by-step roadmap, whether it's grants, whether it's, releasing 30% design, permitting, all of that is in there. And the one thing I do want to say though, is the whole purpose of the redevelopment plan, because it's required by the court, is enhanced public access. And specifically in the council resolution that led to taking and the creation of the RDA, which is required for the creation of a redevelopment plan per state law, enhanced public access and with things such as enhanced boat access provided. So you run a risk of potentially flouting not only your own resolution, but current litigation ongoing without, I'm just being honest, without supplying additional public access. What that means in the eyes of the court is up to the eyes of the court.
I appreciated the statements in here where you indicated the you're not proposing any zoning classifications or and that it's in conformance with the 2026 draft Coventry Comprehensive Plan, which is really what our challenge is here tonight. I think most of what you've touched on is going to be the council's business, but that's our primary.
Yeah, no
concerning thing.
takings, no discretionary actions.
Yep. No changes in land use. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Kevin? Anything about his memo, the plan? Yes.
Yeah, I went to all the meetings. It gives the council plenty of options, right? And it does fall within our comprehensive plan. Again, it's options.
Yep.
Right? They did a great job at it. It covers the legal requirements that the town has. So yeah, I'm good with it. I'm ready to move forward with it. If everyone else is.
Anybody else? Any questions, comments? Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate it.
Thank you so
Appreciate the
much.
presentation and your patience for waiting through the first item we had on our agenda. Okay.
Good, interesting discussion. Good commission. I enjoyed hearing it. Seen a lot of commissions. So thank you so much.
Public comments.
Yep.
Take care.
Okay, before I entertain a motion, is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on the redevelopment plan? Either in the audience or on Zoom? I don't see anyone in the audience. Is there anyone on Zoom? Raise your hand. Seeing none. Okay, so with that, we will entertain a motion to make a recommendation to the town council as stipulated on the agenda.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I will forward a positive recommendation to the town council on the Flat River Reservoir Johnson's Pond redevelopment area plan, as it is in conformance with the 2026 Comprehensive Community Plan, and it is consistent with the Redevelopment Act as set forth in Rhode Island General Law. And I am going to include the Planning Department memorandum and its attachment in my motion.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second by Member De Silva. The motion was by Member Burke. Any further discussion? I don't think we're going to have any. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We're all set with that item. Okay, thank you again, Kevin, for taking the time. Yep, next item's the Conservation Commission. Hold on, I just wanted to get this taken care of. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the discussion of a letter from the Conservation Commission for discussion, vote, or other action. Is that, okay. Sincerely, Coventry Conservation Commission. I know who that is. Are you going to comment on this, Doug, first as an opener?
No, well, I'll just suggest that what you guys received, the Conservation Commission drafted a letter to the town council, and they copied the Planning Commission. I asked that they be available to attend. There's Jerry Narkowitz is the chair of the Conservation Commission. Tom Pendergast is also a member of that board. I think they're here just to open the discussion and hear some ideas. I would note that staff have looked at this issue carefully. We looked at the state law specifically, and there are certain categories of projects in which state law is very specific that certain opinions from other boards have to be requested by the Planning Commission. And there are other categories of projects where it's more open and the commission could weigh in on a project before it's in front of the commission. Ultimately, the commission, the Conservation Commission does have code in the town's code that created the commission and its charge. The decision to amend that code is a decision of the council. As the Conservation Commission brings this request to the council, and it wouldn't be heard tomorrow night, we understand the council has a packed agenda tomorrow. As this comes to a future council meeting, I think the concept was it'd be helpful to have any comments from the Planning Commission on that process, the value that they could add, and their ability to change the code. I think staff's only feedback would be we have to stick within state law. And I'm happy to give more of those details, but I know that the members from the Conservation Commission are here. I think they would likely be able to come up and express where they see opportunities, where they see their expertise being helpful. And then I think we could have some discussion on whether the Planning Commission would want to frame any kind of its own communication on the item as it moves up the chain.
So are we in compliance with state law? And are we asking? I remember when I first got on the board, there was someone here, we used to send stuff to them. I say we send this to them, whether it was after master, we got feedback before preliminary, or whether it came, we got a letter with the packet at the beginning. I just don't, this letter's correct. I don't recall, other than the village.
The state law allows for more. Well, I'll walk through this way. The state law calls different projects out differently. So first and foremost, a type of project we are used to seeing and typically does become a very big conversation point are called comprehensive permits. These are the 25% affordable housing projects. State law is very explicit that those projects, if there is any outside board review, it needs to only be done through a motion of a planning commission to seek that advisory opinion. So that's clear that that the Planning Commission's allowed to ask for it, but that there's no process that can be established where the Conservation Commission can review a project before the Planning Commission has seen it. Conservation comprehensive permits are very specific because the whole purpose is it's trying to narrow down the process to one decision maker, and they don't want communities to set up multiple boards that would be required before you're in front of the singular decision maker.
And if we ask for that information, is the clock ticking?
Yeah, the clock is ticking when someone gets certified as complete. So for example, there might be a big project. You might want to seek the Conservation Commission's advice, and the idea is that will impact the clock. The developer can be monitoring that clock. We can also ask the developer for extensions if we believe that the board would like more information to rely on. Okay. Sometimes on those comprehensive permits, the master plan stage is 60 days clock. So we have to be very mindful of that 60-day clock. It's not infrequent that developers, if the board is getting closer and wants more information to render its decision, that the developers work with the board to extend the clock on their end. Oftentimes, if the board wants more information and the developer's not getting it, you might be in a position where you could say, I don't have the information I need to render a positive decision. Other projects that are worth discussing, major subdivisions and major land development. State law does indicate that there's a path for conservation commissions to weigh in prior to the application arriving in front of the board. And that's something that state law calls out. That's something that I think as this moves along the chain to the town council, it'll be clear that majors, if there's not the affordable housing component, it's not a comprehensive permit, that majors are an area where the commission can be added to, for example, a checklist. And a checklist can suggest that as you submit your application, make sure you receive comments from the Conservation Commission. That will have pros and cons. There might be applicants that feel they need to send their team of experts to the Conservation Commission. There might be applicants that don't. There might be times the Conservation Commission might not take great interest in a project, but we now have it incumbent upon you should seek comments. But that can be navigated. The other category of project are minors, where state law doesn't prohibit anything, and minors are projects that you wouldn't normally see. You see minors when they have a road extension or when they need a variance. So you'll see minors when there's relief. They'd still stay minors, but the state law is not particularly clear. It doesn't prohibit it, but it also doesn't seem to suggest that seeking the Conservation Commission is consistent with the state law in the same way majors are. So that's the landscape. Comp permits has to be done a very specific way. Majors, there seems to be an open opportunity. Minors, it seems to be more closed. That's my quick summary for you.
Are we doing it? I guess my question is, are we not doing it now when we should be in any of these instances?
I think at the end of the day, it still comes down to the town has the opportunity to do this with local code. The key component is in our local code, not zoning, Conservation Commission code, it doesn't give any direction to the commission that it should be seeking reviews. Where we may be going with this is that the local code will start to stipulate the types of projects that the Conservation Commission can weigh into, and the town staff will readdress it and start to establish new expectations. I don't want to say that we're doing anything right or wrong. I'm just going to say there's an opportunity for the local municipality to explicitly establish a path and open the door, and that seems to be where we could do with majors, major land developments or major subdivisions, which are subdivisions over 10 units or commercial projects over 75,000 square feet. That's when it would come to the board, and we could draft code to make sure that that is clear. Applicants would stop at the Conservation Commission on the way to the Planning Commission. I think I attended a Conservation Commission a few weeks ago. We had a good, robust discussion about how this would look, because I think the Conservation Commission wants to ensure their meeting would happen in a timely fashion, that they wouldn't be unduly delaying the arrival of an application. And I think that they're interested in trying to fit in with that schedule. So it would be after we have an application, we have information we can rely upon, and they'd be able to review, and it wouldn't cause extra delays for projects to arrive in front of you. So I think they're eager to try to find a way to fit within the cadence of a monthly schedule of submissions and reviews. Mr. Narcoles, do you want to, and Mr. Pendergast, if you both want to approach, you're welcome to.
Jerry Narkowitz, 21 Beach Street, Coventry, Rhode Island, representing the Coventry Conservation Commission. I am the chairman. We have been wrestling with what do we do with our time as a Conservation Commission? And we have some expertise, and we see things come before you tonight and sit there and think, wow, I might have had a couple good ideas there that I could have incorporated, but I couldn't. And we're hoping there's an avenue that you can help us to be involved in these decisions. And we've struggled with this for months and months and months. And I've been sitting on the Conservation Commission 25 years. And historically, every project came before us, and I'm not sure what changed or that the town planner was doing it incorrectly, but we reviewed every plan. And there were plans that we just said, we have no comment. There was nothing that really involved us or that we thought we could add information to. So sitting down with Doug at our last meeting, he said the best way to do this is to go before the planning board and explain to them your situation. And he's now looked at some of the legal snafus that come about. And I realized that those things might happen and we might have to take a year to get this thing to all come to fruition. But wouldn't it be worth it? Wouldn't it be worth it to have a different set of eyes on it that maybe are just a little different, that make you think? I mean, I could comment on that project that was here tonight. I had ideas looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, wow. I could see you guys really struggling with some of those things. And I thought, man, if a letter from the Coventry Conservation Commission had added some thoughts, maybe it would have triggered something that you would have thought differently about. So that's where we're at. I don't need to belabor it. You guys have had a long night already. Do you have questions for me? You've read the letter that Tom wrote, so I don't need to read that letter or explain that. We have all the rights to appear before the town council at any time on any project before them, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I suppose I can't speak broadly about all town council projects, but I think that the code does point out that you're charged with providing an advisory role to the town manager and the town council. That much is clear.
That's clear. So do you have questions for Tom or I?
Not to the planning commission, though?
No, the current Coventry Conservation Commission code, it basically states the Conservation Commission shall act in an advisory capacity to the town council and the town manager. Its purpose is to promote and develop natural resources to protect the watershed resources and to preserve natural aesthetic areas within town. So we would be looking to be very specific on should the Conservation Commission be added a role to review development of certain types of projects consistent with state law. And that's something that council will ultimately decide. We've just thought it was wise along the path of travel for the Planning Commission to hear some of this. To be honest, some of these details are fairly new as we're emerging with our development review. We wanted to make sure if we were going down this path, is there somewhere where state law would say, no, you can't do it that way? We're discovering that that is true for comprehensive permit applications. So for the application we just saw, it would be that you would need to seek and identify as part of the hearing that you're looking for an advisory opinion from the Conservation Commission. There's no other way to go about it. So that's just worth knowing these details that constrain the town from handling it any way we wish. There are details that say we can only handle it certain ways, and they can keep moving forward to the council to see what the council has to say.
I want to go back to, what was that, Mr. De Silva? 'Cause
No, I said, so that's after the fact. They would have to come to a hearing in order to provide us any guidance in that scenario that you just gave.
Yeah, the options that a Conservation Commission member have are, one, individuals on the Conservation Commission can appear in front of you as public commenters. They can send letters as individuals. They're acting in their capacity as residents, and that there's certainly, it may not change what their individual knowledge and expertise are, but they're acting in their capacity as residents. They'd like to act in their capacity as an entire commission and voices the entire commission. To do that in a comprehensive permit, an affordable housing project, it has to come through a request from you. State law is specific on that. Like I mentioned, the other project types, majors, it seems like it's actually much more open, and it suggests that it can be done as like a gathering comments prior to it arriving. And then minors, it is not clear. It seems to suggest that it wants the TRC to have the only role. Minors are projects you often don't see unless they have a variance.
Mr. Narkowicz, what's your idea of something like this going forward?
I would love the opportunity to see plans, even like tonight. You sent that project away. You could have said, and we want an opinion of the Conservation Commission.
See, that's what my comment was gonna be. We get that project in front of us, like the one tonight, and say, you know, maybe we would like an opinion from the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
That puts another step
That's
in that the contractor or the applicant now has to go through, and we're seeing it after the fact.
Yeah.
So that's something we'd have to, as a board, say, yeah, we want the Conservation Commissioner to review this, so that affects his 60-day clock too.
Exactly, that's it.
Yeah, so that is true.
Well, we wouldn't- hold on, it would affect the clock, but would the report come in at preliminary or would we have to hold off now?
Well, actually, so state law does, when it talks about majors, it seemed to suggest that master plan is the stage where you would get comments. Now, again, clocks are different for all different project types. The 60-day clock, which is a shorter clock than most big projects you get, most of the time it's 90 days. 60 days is for the comp permit and master plan, which is what you just saw. And it is the project that it would need to come from you. So when you see these projects, there is a shorter clock to react to. And
We couldn't ask for it until tonight because it hasn't been. before.
that's correct. We discussed the concept of, is the board in a position to even designate, like, could the planning commission designate a liaison?
And that's state
And
law, not town
That,
ordinance.
this is state law. State law prohibits the idea that a town can line up multiple boards before the comprehensive permit reaches the planning commission. The state law's intent is very clear. It's supposed to be one-stop shopping for the developer. The state law for comp permits is supposed to be a streamlined process for the developer. That does not stop you from seeking an advisory opinion when you want it, but then the clock does come into bear. And you might have an applicant that might say, I don't wish to extend the clock. So the Conservation Commission will need to be ready to act. But oftentimes when you get projects, 60 days might be enough to get you from your first meeting to your second. So not to rule it out. This project, for example, if you wanted, I know there was deliberation on this project, but if the board wanted to, the board could have sought to extend it. And I was telling Mr. Narkowitz, who was saying, oh man, it's tough for me to appear in front of the board and make the request live. They're allowed to send a letter on your first hearing and say, we think this is a project the Conservation Commission can add value. They don't have to appear to make it clear, here's a project. If you want our advisory opinion, you can seek it. All projects come in different shapes and sizes, and there might be projects where they say, we really think we can weigh in here, and there might be projects where they say, there's not much we have to say. They can send a letter. The letter could reach you for a comp permit and affordable housing, and at the first meeting, you can consider it. Oftentimes, you'd probably be within your 60 days to have 2 meetings. And so that's the discretion of the Planning Commission on a project-by-project basis as mandated by state law. It does not allow you to create any kind of system where the Concom can weigh in early. That's just how that would have to be, a project-by-project decision.
I'm just curious how we got away with it before. He mentioned that it was done. So were we in violation of state law?
I don't want to speak to
Yeah, who
any of that. It was part of before when I arrived, the Conservation Commission actually wasn't active or meeting quite yet. There was a period in time where they lost a quorum of members and they were not able to have meetings. When I came on board, we after some time were able to get them reconstituted, reestablished, had meetings, and then I looked at the code from my perspective, which was I wanted to see code that suggested how the Conservation Commission had a codified role in the development review. I didn't see it. And so my perspective was different than previous directors. I'm open to what they're suggesting, but I think we have to do it within state law. And to me, what I'm seeing is state law suggests that majors is where the state wants the Conservation Commission to have a role. And majors are different. Majors without the comprehensive permit.
And they did. I remember Cindy Fagan was the one that always said, I want to see the letter from the Conservation Commission, or she kicked it
I
dead.
remember Cindy. I remember Cindy very well.
And that's
And
why it's
particularly
in the
majors
design.
at the master plan stage. And majors at master plan, the idea would be we might be heading to a place where you see a major, and in your first review of the major, you're going to have the staff report, TRC comments, and there'll be a Conservation Commission report with it. It won't change the timing. And that's where state law says that that's most appropriate. That I think that this would still ultimately be the call of the council. And if the council concurs and they want to send that, and that's what I'm reviewing from state law. And I think that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of where they're likely headed. But I think it's wise for the commission to kind of be aware of it. And if you wanted to create any communication on your end that you wanted to add for the council to consider as they thought this through. The last time the conservation came, Tom Pendergast did approach the commission. It was 2 years ago at least, Tom, maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago.
Thanks, Christmas time, and I brought a stormwater project to some of you folks.
We were across the street.
Yeah, it was a small meeting across the street. And then,
Those are the types of things that we do have expertise on. So I work regularly with the University of New Hampshire's Stormwater Center, and we provided the town with a design, sorry.
Yep.
So Tom Pendergast, 6 White Rock Road. So we helped design a stormwater system for Upper Dam Pond that could be a model for things that could be used townwide. Low cost, low maintenance, highly effective. So we're a commission without a cause. And I know that you don't come into this meeting every week and the agenda is the same. Every month, our agenda is the same. And as much as I love Jerry, our agenda is the same because we don't have anything to work on. And I'm not going to go out and plant trees for the town. I want to save the assets and the open spaces. I want to be involved in the RDA. I go as a citizen. I don't go as the Conservation Commission. I would love to help you folks on things that, you know, make a difference to the community, that help save our natural resources, to weigh in, because our agenda is the same every week, every month.
It's frustrating.
I think,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Before you just, I had an idea, like you asked, what's your idea? One of the things, because I can see the quagmire, sure you can see it also, that what if your board had a checklist at the end of each discussion of a project, Mishnak, whatever the project is? Should we ask for an opinion of the Conservation Commission? Check. Doug, will you let the Conservation Commission know we want an opinion from them? And Doug will say, can't let you do that on this one. This project won't allow that, or whatever. But at least that little checkbox allows you to say, this is one we like their opinion. Doug may say, or the solicitor may say, can't do it. Then it's a dead deal. We don't have to worry. We could come in as Jerry Narkowitz, the citizen. But if you had that little checkbox every meeting, for every project, especially the ones that are going to take another month like the previous project, that would have worked, wouldn't it?
Let me think, weren't we talking about when the plans come to your office, they would know the plans, it's on our agenda.
Mhm.
If it's something you wanted to weigh in on, it would be as simple as an email. Hey, we think we can add value to this. And then he'll include that email with our packet, and then we would ask for the advice.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
would ask them to weigh in.
So keep in
As
mind,
opposed to waiting until we're already hearing that, because it's only the comp permits that you have to even wait.
correct.
Do they
So-
need to vote for that though?
There would be for a comp permit. They don't need a vote, in my opinion, for a representative of their board
Okay.
to serve as a liaison enough to suggest we think we could add value. For example, I've told Jerry, recently that if he was to ever say there's a project we would like to suggest as this project hits the planning commission, we think we can add value. And I said, Jerry, I have no problems with you as the chair of the board serving as the liaison to suggest that. And then the Conservation Commission doesn't need to vote to say, we think this is a project we can add value. Because all it is, it's a communication piece to open a potential door. And
We put that in our packet. He wouldn't even have to appear. We would say, oh, they think they can add value.
Correct.
All we have to do is in part of our motion.
Yeah, but
Correct.
don't we have to have a meeting in order to?
We do.
Yes.
Correct.
The
So
planning
it's almost
commission.
after the fact, right?
Only on-
We need it before, right? Because how many
Well-
people come here and want an answer that day?
But only on the comp.
Right.
permits. The
Yeah.
ones that are coming, that are as a major land development, Doug can require that as part of the applicant's package that the Conservation Commission is going to weigh in. We're going to get that with our packet.
Yes, that's correct. It has, for a comp permit, which keep in mind, those tend to be the projects where we generate a lot of interest. For the comp permits, it has to be at a planning commission meeting where the planning commission would vote to request an advisory commission, the advisory opinion. There are other types of projects where it could be just built into the system. It comes to you as part of a normal routine. That's just where we spent a lot of time making sure we were very clear on that. And the solicitors weighed in and they said, yeah, that is absolutely clear.
And I'm-
But at this, for the example, tonight's matter, it could, and I think Mr. Narkowitz was probably just wanted to have this conversation before he started maybe peppering you with letters. But I think, Mr. Narkowitz could have written a letter that came as part of your packet saying, I'm not speaking for the substance of what the Concom will or won't say. I'm only suggesting this is a project I think we could add value on. And then that way you'd know, and you'd have something in your packet to say, oh, should we or shouldn't we? We have to consider it. We have to vote on it one way or the other.
But if we get a comp permit, I don't want to put a box at the end of every single one because it could be just a waste of time. I would rather know when the application is here. Did you hear anything from the conservation? Yeah, they'd be interested in this one. Okay, then we'll put it on the bottom. You don't have to appear. All I'm saying is, we know the comp permit's coming. We have to ask for it. It would be helpful to know, yeah, Conservation Commission contacted me. They'd like to weigh in on this one. Okay, no problem. We'll add the box to the bottom of the motion. It'll be right, it's not a stipulation, but just a note in your report. Conservation Commission reached out. We'll see that in there. We'll say, oh, we'd like to send this to the Conservation Commission. Now, the bigger issue, and again, I'm just speaking candidly, all of us on this board, some of us have experience on planning, some of us are learning as we go. All of us have varying levels of expertise in the various things that come before us, whether it's engineering, real estate, or just being a layperson. And we did have a biologist from DEM on for years. His name slips my mind. You probably remember.
Good guy.
But where I get a little bit hung up is some of these applicants, as you saw with Village at Lake Tyoke, come in with a litany of experts. I'm an engineer. I got 100 degrees. I got this. I got that. I got this. And then I get a letter from the Conservation Commission and I read it and I go, God, those are all good points. But if something ends up, how can we kind of weigh that in as far as expertise? And you're assuming you're in the same position as us. You may have 5 degrees and know every single thing you're talking about with the stormwater and the things you just told us about. So it would be helpful to kind of have that knowledge when we're speaking, or, if we're going to get something from the Conservation Commission, this particular member took this on and reviewed it. And as you know, and we'll get to know after a while. I'm not saying every single one, but it would be helpful to know the expertise, that we're not just listening to folks maybe that said, oh, I want to get in the Conservation Commission because I don't like development in town. And they're like, what about the groundhogs and this and that? And, I just.
It'd be a bad Conservation Commission.
Right. I realize that, but I'm just saying, because that's kind of what we have to consider, is this going to go to litigation? If we put all of our weight behind the Conservation Commission and we deny an application, I don't want to find out, 9 months later, it's in court and they had their experts and we relied on so just keep that in the back of your mind.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
I think a good example, and I don't want to list any specific projects, but let's just say in previous examples of Conservation Commission advisory opinions, we've received things like this project should provide a pollution prevention plan. And state may say that's not triggered. There's no requirement. And the applicant may say, I'm not going to give it to you. And the Planning Commission has to weigh that carefully. Would they mandate it, even if state law says we can't? That's fine. You're allowed to have an opinion from them that might suggest something, and then you say, turns out we can't act on that. The same advisory opinion might suggest, let's talk about future sizing of sewer, something that wasn't maybe on people's minds, a nice nuance, a nice detail. And we get information about a project that we know how we could expand a sewer line beyond the immediate project to pick up other properties where we want them on sewer. There's a mix of things you're going to get. And I think the idea is that the good ideas are always good ideas. And if there's something that we can't act on because there's a limitation of state law, or we don't have a developer that's cooperating and they know they're meeting the minimum and they don't have to do better, the commission is always in that position to try to weigh out where there's a good idea, where can they act on it, and maybe where are they never going to be able to take it to the next step.
We have a little more leverage with the regular conventional subdivisions than we do in those comp permits, because if they dig their heels in and say, nope, I don't have to provide it, state law says I don't have to listen to that, pop, 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 and that's it. But on the other ones, it's like, oh, if we don't give them this, maybe they're not going to approve it, so why don't we just give it to them?
Yep, there's a balance in all these projects. So I think the way I'd think about it is that, good idea, there's no limitation on someone giving us ideas, but there might be ideas you get from the Conservation Commission, and there may be a developer that will say, this is why we can't move on that idea. And it could be that they maybe say, we can't give it to you now, we'll give it to you at the next round, or that we're not required and we don't wish to. Then the commission has to balance that. They're getting an idea and they're getting, then we see where the reality is with state law and your ability to act on it.
I think I started off the conversation by saying we're all here as lay people and we're learning as we go. So yes, if we get information or another point of view that none of us have looked at, it's welcome.
Yeah, it can never hurt.
Right.
That I can tell. And yeah, I do remember the time when we would submit every project that came before. Don't understand how the law changed, but it's obviously changed, or the interpretation has changed. However, there were projects that we said, we have no comment. Done. Go off. Or you didn't get anything because we didn't really consider it.
I can't remember the last conventional major that we've had. Everything's been a compromise except for the one.
The majors you've
signed.
gotten are commercial projects.
Yep.
You've gotten a couple of commercial projects that would have qualified as majors. It's been a long time since we got a residential project. Well, I don't want to say a long time. The vast majority of residential projects we're getting now tend to be the comp permits.
That says if there's a comp project out there, they look at it and say, we think we could add value to this. There's nothing that stops them from reviewing the project and putting all their thoughts together, right?
This is the challenge. As individuals, Jerry Narkowitz and Tom Pendergast can each review those plans. They can each come with they can send a letter, they can come and comment, and they can say, I'm commenting as an individual. I think I'm an intelligent individual that has background, so please take this seriously. For them to act as a board, that's different. And the Conservation Commission can't elect to add a project to its own agenda because now they have created a review that wasn't asked for. So like for them to consider, let's talk about what our comments might be, that has to be an agenda item. To be on the agenda without it being directed to them, it would be a violation of state law.
Not to interrupt, but it sounds like the best thing is when the comp permits come in, if they think they have an interest, they have to basically communicate, even if it's an email, and then you communicate to us. Conservation Commission said they might have some value to add to this project if you guys want to ask for it. And the first thing when it comes to us, we ask for it.
That's the key, is to ask.
Yep.
And then
Just need to know that you're going to be able to add value.
so that works for the comp permits, but for a traditional major land development or subdivision application, would that automatically happen before the meeting?
Yeah, that could automatically happen before the meeting. And that's where we spent some time in researching, is that improper? And it looks like that's fine and it's consistent with state law. And that to us, the majors at the master plan stage is where state law seems to suggest that, and not only did it suggest the Conservation Commission, it suggested the Recreation Commission, who we hadn't even considered. And we'd have to maybe have a discussion to see if they're interested. But that's where it suggested that's almost like gather the comments leading up to the Planning Commission's review, as if it's like a checklist item.
Right.
And
That requires town council approval to change something that's not being done now.
yeah, I believe that in order to make that clear, we're looking for the council to change the code. Like in chapter 15
Right.
of the town code, we'd be looking for the council to make it clear where they, believe the Conservation Commission should have a role. And that wouldn't preclude you from, on any project, seeking the advisory opinion. It's very clear that the way the code's written now, you can seek an advisory opinion. It's like you're using your authority to activate them. That's clear. State law allows that. What isn't clear is, should anything appear on their agenda before it's come to you, which that we feel like does need some local town council direction to ensure that's the direction the community wanted to go.
So in a hypothetical scenario, what if the Conservation Commission can't meet that month due to a quorum issue, the power's out, there's a snowstorm, whatever? Does it prevent us from voting on that master plan approval?
We'd have to be careful in the way we craft it so that the comments from the commission wouldn't be a requirement, but at every given month, they would have an opportunity to weigh in. You know, I know these guys generally do meet frequently. They don't tend to have an issue where they can't meet. They have low numbers in their membership, and I know they're also going to be concurrently asking to increase from 5 to 7 members. But all these things are basically, if they can't meet, that wouldn't stop the process, and we'd ensure that the way we frame it in our checklist isn't going to make it an incomplete application.
Okay.
I think that these guys in good faith, if they can't meet on, one night, they might see if they can gather together the next week and still catch up on it.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I welcome the comments. I think there's value in it. I just know that we're up against a clock when we need to make these decisions. And I remember the days when we had to provide recommendations from the Planning Commission to the Zoning Board. And if for whatever reason the Planning Board couldn't meet, it would send the office into a tailspin because the domino effect for the Zoning Board was difficult. So I just want to try to prevent that situation.
I would say in the rare cases where they, plan to meet, they can't, someone had a surprise issue, they didn't have a quorum, we would frame our requirements so that it doesn't preclude you from meeting. And these guys also may say, well, we're going to meet the next week and we'll still catch you before your meeting. So it's a good thought. It's a good comment. We'd be thoughtful of not tying our own hands, making sure that we're opening the opportunity, but we're not tying our hands from still moving on projects.
It's a good point. We went through a calendar just to see. There was definitely going to be times when we were like, oh, dang, we're going to get, and we're only going to have a week to play with. And that means we have to look at it and craft some type of response that we think is important enough to do. So we could see it.
And if you have that calendar ahead of time, you can anticipate that too. So
I could still
that's
see
good.
it.
That's good.
A week is pretty good. That's more time than we get.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, these guys got their packets. These were sent out to you guys in the middle of Thursday. So you've had, three full days to consider it. Most of those were weekend or holidays. But it's a challenge whenever you do development review. The idea is that we don't want to give you a half-baked project. We want to send stuff to you when the information's firm. And even that's still a work in progress. So you guys do a great job. These guys would have to do the same thing. Take in the work, starting to get ahead of their reviews. They're going to have to go into meetings not being sure if the rest of the commission even thinks there's going to be a comment, and they're all going to have to individually review it and say, do I have a comment? If I do, I have to be ready at the meeting. Could be the rest of the board says, we don't even want to comment on this. And someone spent 2 hours looking at a plan that the rest of the board says isn't worth their time.
Any other questions for Tom or I?
Ready? I don't. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much.
For staying as
And as a final remark, I don't know if the board wants to vote to have any correspondence added. It could just be that your concept here is that you're comfortable with this discussion as we had it, and that it's just, I'll carry it forward as knowing that the planning commission's advised, you're comfortable with how this was framed, didn't have any explicit communication you wanted to send. Is that fair, or do you guys have something else you want to?
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Anything further? Okay. And by the way, I like the recreation too.
You like the idea that if recreation's listed in state law?
You get a 100 units going in and there's nothing for the kids to do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I bet that's why they showed up. They used to pop those little parks in. There's one in Hunter's Crossing. There's one at, I forgot the name of the other one out there past Glenwood.
Actually, I brought that up to Scott.
Those are really good.
I'm sorry?
I brought that up to Scott last week about, as we begin to look through some of these, that we have conversations with him about potentially adding like we used to, like we did Hunter's Crossing and others, stuff that the community can use. Because he just spent a crazy amount of money for a new playground, for 2 new playgrounds, right? So maybe as we do some of these bigger developments for open space, we add those things for something else, right?
Even
We
if
used
they
to.
just dedicated the land and the town got a grant to build them. I mean,
My thing's a dog kennel up in center New England.
There's always opportunities to see what we can do. For example, you know, the Conservation Commission on a prior project suggested a playground at a prior project. We didn't have a developer that was open to that concept, and we were up against, you know, it with a developer, and we were just cutting units and we were handling business the way we would. If this, for example, there might be projects where you'd say, instead of a sidewalk, which could go either way, on this project, I'd rather see the emphasis on a playground. Within development review, you guys are aware, sometimes there's a trade-off, and it might be nice to know someone with expertise to say, there's not a playground within 2 miles of this site. So keep that in mind when you're thinking that. And here's a big site that might have kids. You know, every project's different. So we will keep that in mind about the Recreation Commission. And that is in the state law, kind of like right next to the Conservation Commission as potential comments on a master plan major land development.
Have a great night, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, James. Just quick communication items. One is that for 9.1, just reminding you, we are still beyond the changes we made at the last month's meeting regarding letters of credit. There are still changes we're considering with this. We anticipate we may have some traction on that and have potentially some changes to consider in the next maybe 2 to 3 months. Next is item 9.2 on the agenda, comprehensive plan / housing chapter update. Those of you are well aware, we've been working in parallel process while we got our comp plan over the finish line. We've been working to rewrite the housing chapter. We anticipate having a community-wide event on July 20th. It's a Monday night. It's 2 nights before your regular July meeting. This would be a planning department hosted event, and it would be basically a listening session to get community input specifically on housing issues. We would actually have a few representatives from the state there, not legislative representatives, administrative representatives. There's been discussions with the new Executive Office of Housing and inviting Secretary Goddard and some other staff from that. They may give a little bit of a presentation in terms of what they're looking at in terms of data and circumstances of affordable housing around the state. Then a chunk of that night would be spent providing initial draft concepts on where we're going with housing policies and the data we're relying on and seeking feedback. Speaking with Solicitor Igliozzi, he suggested that it would be a department hosted meeting that would happen regardless of however many planning commission members might be able to attend, however many town council members might be able to attend. But we would also suggest that concurrent, there would be a posted agenda of the planning commission and the town council, because if a quorum of them attended, we would want to cover ourselves if they just wanted to engage in the discussion, even if it's not their meeting and they're not leading the presentation, if they wanted to just have a discussion. So Solicitor Igliozzi suggested that it's a town department-led meeting, a staff-led meeting, in which a quorum of either group will be invited. And if they appear, they'll be free to speak and engage in the content of what's being discussed, because ultimately this group and the town council will have a role in voting on the housing chapter content. We don't want to put you in a position where you're commenting on it, improperly and then having to vote on it a few months later. So I'm going to just make note, July 20th. You're going to get an email that'll frame this a little more specifically with the times and the details, but we're going to post an agenda of the Planning Commission as well as an agenda of the Town Council. If you don't attend and we don't have a quorum, that doesn't stop the meeting from happening. It just means if 2 of you come, those 2 members are still allowed to have the discussion. If 5 of you come, that means you're allowed to have the discussion, but it's happening as part of your own meeting. This was our plan to allow for just free flow of discussion without running into any open meeting laws. That's all I had to say on that, unless there's questions on the nature of that meeting. Any individual can email me and ask as you see fit. Item 9.3 on the agenda, future code updates. I just wanted you to know that we are working with our consultant, Weston and Sampson, about utilizing future meetings of the Planning Commission to perhaps give you content on these topics. The town has had a contract with this consultant for a little while, and we have had previous discussions about how and where we might allow multifamily or two families in town. This was a use previously allowed by a special use permit. It went away because we shut down all special use permits. That's not to say that this is a use we wouldn't ever want to reconsider, but we'd have to be real thoughtful in how we want to allow a by right multifamily project or by right two families. Not an easy thing just to tackle. It's very tricky for the town staff to give code and then just start to react from that, because we need to have more of a common starting place. We've had the discussions, we've got the notes from what we've discussed already. We've discussed one of the key concepts is a bit of an even Steven. We wouldn't want the allowance of multifamily or two family to inherently create a density bonus, because the fear is someone will take that density bonus and they'll seek a comprehensive permit on top of that, and they'll get their own state bonus on top of a local bonus. So we've talked about we wanted to be conservative with the density that would be allowed, not to increase density, but we've talked about the use could still be viable, that someone could still want to try to frame a two family on a lot that, that would be a good fit. The other components here, we're going to be looking at other uses previously allowed by special use permits, that a lot of them would be commercial in nature. And we'd want to be seeking the board's feedback on, you've seen gas stations, you've seen dog kennels. These are just a few of the uses where it was previously allowed with a special use permit, and now we're trying to think about what regulations do we want to bring it back. So on some of these, it's not to say we're going to show up with full code in front of you, but these are items that you may see as at the end of agendas as discussion items, and our consultant, Weston and Sampson, may be joining us at future meetings, maybe even as soon as July 22nd. We have a big project. Don't want to name the project, but we have a big project we'll be reviewing that night. But maybe even at the end of the night, 10, 15 minutes of discussion on some of these could be valuable to give us direction and start to take some of this code and move on it. Correct. The idea is that these would be workshops. I'm giving you a heads up on things that are coming to you as like workshop items. And I wanted just to see if anyone had any initial reactions, questions. Any individual can reach out to me with email to say, Doug, what's going on with that? You guys are all, as individuals, can get all the details. It's as a group, I wanted to make sure you knew what was coming. And if you had questions, you could ask. If you had feedback, comments, you can ask. The idea is this is mostly like a heads up what's coming in the next few months. Save the date for July 20th in the meantime, please. I think your attendance and feedback would be valuable at that. We want to invite the whole community. You'd be sitting in the audience, but we really want to hear from you. It's content you're going to be voting on eventually.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion to adjourn.